The first salvo in the U.S.-China trade war is fired, $34 billion worth of goods targeted on both sides. The Chinese state newspaper calling the Trump administration, quote, a gang of hoodlums when it comes to trade, but a fragile truce could be reached by year's end, according to the Eurasia Group. Ian Bremmer is Eurasia's president. He joins us now. It's good to see you on this Friday.
Good to see you, too.
So last night leading up to this, you called it vastly exaggerated, the trade war. Why so?
Well, we've known it's coming for a long time. It's obviously priced into the markets. Tariffs against $34 billion against Chinese goods and tit for tat is very different than $500 billion, which is the entirety, of course, of what the Chinese send over to the United States. Trump has been very clear that he doesn't want to be seen by the markets as the heavy, which is why he backed off from personally being responsible for putting all these restrictions on what the Chinese can invest in technology. He also, remember that tweet he put out where he said, I don't want to lose so many Chinese jobs with that telecom company, ZTE, backed off of bankrupting them as well. Trump respects the strong man, and he understands that if you're going to push people around, a lot easier to push around the Mexicans, the Canadians, who are completely reliant on the United States than the Chinese.
He's threatening to do the full 500.
Of course he's threatening that. He threatens stuff all the time. He threatened to build a wall that the Mexicans were going to pay for. I'm saying that on the basis of what we've seen from Trump over the first year and a half, he's been much more sensitive to markets taking him to task than he has been for rhetoric, which is useful in a run-up to November midterm elections. We are in a high political season right now.
So the $500 billion is unlikely, is the bottom line.
Extraordinarily unlikely.
Got it. Look, I mean, Wilbur Ross, I think, was on our network, the other day or last week, saying there's no downside number to the stock market that's going to get the president or the administration to blink. You don't believe that?
No, but I also think that blinking is what this president does all the time on every side. And his unpredictability has been an asset in working with the Chinese because they don't know how to manage him, right? He has gotten more from the Chinese than the Obama administration had on North Korea, and in terms of saying we're willing to buy more goods from you.
But he is then at a point of strength. Why would he think that he needs to blink? Isn't it likely the Chinese would blink first?
Look, I think it's quite possible. I think the willingness of Trump to engage with the Chinese in coming up with a compromise is vastly greater after midterms, once you've put in your 36 and then your 14 billion, than it is right now. Timing matters in everything, but especially in politics.
When all is said and done, tariffs in the world, going to be higher or lower?
Oh, I think they'll end up a little higher, sure.
Higher?
Yeah, I think when all is said and done, tariffs will end up a little higher because the ability of the United States to get the Europeans to task, for example, is going to be challenged.
Okay, so the market rallied yesterday when we saw this talk about the German automakers and maybe they're going to agree to lower all tariffs, and people said, well, look, this could mean that when all is said and done, actually, tariffs in the world are lower, because that would mean the Japanese would have lower tariffs into the EU, et cetera, not just the United States.
And I think that's hard to do because when you're talking about the Europeans, it's not just the German automakers, it's the Italian automakers who are much more vulnerable to lower prices coming in. And I think it's hard to get the Europeans to agree on that. So ultimately, Trump has a hard time dealing with multilateral institutions. It's why he said no to TPP. It's why he doesn't really like NAFTA. It's why he told Macron, let's do a bilateral deal. Get out of the EU. That's not going to happen, right? So the EU is the world's largest trading bloc. It's not getting weaker, right? It's not going away. And I think that that's going to be challenging for Trump to engage with.
You think he's right on trade, Trump?
No, I think look, I think that there are major problems between the United States and China, which have to do with the different nature of those economic systems. The Chinese are not about tit for tat on trade. If they're going to squeeze us, it's not because of the $34 billion.
No, but they've been squeezing us.
I know, but if they're going to squeeze us more, I'm saying, they're going to cause problems at the border with customs. They're going to say not as many Chinese will be tourists to the United States. They'll do what they did to the South Koreans back when the South Koreans bought the THAAD missiles.
You tell me, how do you get them to stop? How do you get them to stop squeezing us then?
Look, I think that when Steve Bannon, back when he was chief strategist, and he said, if you're going to hit the Chinese, hit them now when we're stronger, then wait for 10 years' time when they actually have the upper hand. There's something to be said for that.
But how?
But it's hard, right? I think on the technology piece, saying that the Chinese actually are a national security danger on AI, where they're building monopolies and where we're not as interlinked, I would focus on the tech, and I wouldn't be focused on the trade as much, where we are so much more dependent on each other. That would be my focus.
I'm quite surprised, though, that you think at the end of the day, as Michelle asked you think tariffs are going to be higher as a result of this rather than lower.
I wouldn't necessarily suggest that between the United States and China, but I think that Trump's ability to implement effectively Look, you've got politics in Mexico. AMLO just been elected, big majority. He wants a deal with NAFTA. That doesn't mean his ability to get a deal with NAFTA in the next year or two is going to be easy. So I think the issue here is execution, which is a hell of a lot messier than just the headlines.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.